Would you pray with me, please? May the words of my mouth and the meditation of all of our hearts be pleasing and acceptable to you this day. For you are our rock and our Redeemer, O God. Amen. So this is the Sunday of joy. At least we light the candle of joy. It's often called Mary's candle. And we'll see quite a bit of crossover between this week and next week as far as these stories of Mary and Elizabeth and coming together and the Magnificat and the blessings and all of that kind of intertwined together. And so I may repeat myself a little bit, but sometimes that's okay. That's how we learn, by repetition. Today, as we focus on joy, I wonder where your heart is. I had to look carefully as to where mine was. But first, let's talk about dreaming. This series, Those Who Dream, invites us to know that dreaming is a choice. That we can choose to ignore the dreams that God places on our hearts. We can choose to ignore the dreams we have for our lives, for our families, for our jobs. We can even choose to ignore joy, although I do think that joy that comes from God's love is probably a little bit harder to ignore. But it is a choice. And so for us, this Advent season, I wonder for you, what does it mean to sow joy? What does it mean to dream big enough that you plant the seeds to receive joy or to offer joy to others? You see, the thing with dreaming and the thing with sowing joy is you can't just begin and expect things to go exactly as you wish them to. You have to continue the work. And I don't know how else to say it, but it's work. Sometimes it's not real difficult work, but I don't know any dream that comes that easily that we can just snap our fingers and have it happen. Perhaps you do. Come and send me an email or call me on the telephone and let me know, because I'd love to hear that story. But in this case, I want us to look at sowing joy and dreaming in this way. Sowing joy is somewhat like growing a garden, sowing those seeds into the earth. And we need to be attentive to what we're doing. You see, if we want to grow carrots, we can't plant cucumber seeds. If we want to sow joy, we can't plant hatred. If we want to sow love, we can't plant anger. So you see, we do need to be attentive to this dreaming thing. We do need to be attentive as to what we're sowing, what we're actually putting in the earth. And then we have to pay attention to what actually comes next. You see, when we moved to northern Wisconsin, my family, and some of you have heard parts of this story, my dad's family has this huge piece of forest, and there's a clearing, and they had been growing family gardens for years by the time we were there. And so we were invited to be a part of the dream. Oh, was it a big dream? And the project, which essentially meant that we were a part of doing the work, the hard work. And we were kind of the guinea pigs and didn't know how sore one's body could get planting a garden that was half the size of a football field. My dad's family doesn't ever do anything in a small way. Well, we became a part of, for the 7 or 8 years we were there, that dream of providing enough food not only for our family, but for the community around us. And there was great intention. We had to learn lots of things. We had to learn how to bring the water up from a place kind of like a well or a spring, bring it up and help my cousin have it come so that sprinklers would turn on in case it didn't rain for particular weeks along the way. We had to learn how to, in order to do the tilling, get rid of the rocks and some of the weeds, which were just everywhere because it's a forest. And so it was a process from early spring or whenever the ground thawed until late into the fall. And it was always amazing to me, especially the first fall we were there, to see the field after it was plowed under and started to be prepared for the next season. All of the possibilities for the next year, right? And we had to learn some things. I had to learn a little bit about organic gardening and to not plant certain plants next to other plants because it would attract a certain kind of bug that then would be difficult to get rid of. And if you planted according to people who knew what they were doing, you actually could keep a lot of those critters and things away. So it was a learning and a growing, and it was a fascinating time. And then, of course, the wonderful joy of reaping what came from that dream, that empty plot of dirt that had been plowed over. Such is the opportunity for us when we dream, allow God's dreams to come in to our own life. Oh, they take work. And as I said earlier, they take choice. We have to make the conscious effort. But that's never a switch that's turned off. C.S. Lewis wrote, "You're never too old to set another goal or dream a new dream." So I wonder for you, how and what do you dream of now? For you folks who do knitting and crocheting, hats and mats, with a prayer and a dream that they might make a difference for somebody. For those of you who offered money and PJs to help collaborate with East Valley Family Services in the needs of their families, a prayer and a dream to keep children warm and also safe. All the dreams of God come through us into a reality. So even for us as a church, what are the dreams that are being sowed in you now for safety and security on our campus, for revitalizing our congregation, to offer hope and bring meaning to our community? And yet, in the midst of this COVID season, I wonder, can we really dream joy now? How hard is it for you? I know for me, it breaks my heart to make choices to be away from my family during the holiday season. It breaks my heart to not be here on Christmas Eve with all of you. So this sowing joy seems like a wrestling match for me sometimes right now. Mike asked me a question. Do we, as people of faith, repeat the sounding joy? We sing joy to the world, but do we repeat that sounding joy? Do we bring that dream of love that came down at Christmas to each other in the world around us. Mary's song, our text for today, the Magnificat, is reminiscent of Hannah's song in 1 Samuel. These deep, deep words that speak of a world that doesn't exist right now for them or for us. Eternal words that it's a constant work in progress, this being human and being in relationship with God. The memory and the dream of God in hopefulness speaks so clear to us today. Mary's voice, with all my heart, I glorify the Lord. And she goes on with words that truly can grasp our heart and even our breath if we think about them as dreaming for the future of our world. If we go backwards a couple of verses, and as I said, there'll be some back and forth between this week and next week. If we go back to part of Elizabeth's visit with Mary, when Mary goes and sees her cousin, Elizabeth has some real clear words, I think, to speak to us today about sowing joy in this time of grieving. She says, God has blessed you above all women, and he has blessed the child you carry. And I wonder, we then can take this, God has blessed you, each one of you, just as Mary was blessed, each one of you, to be a blessing to another. And I wonder how you will receive the blessing of carrying the gift God gives you into the world. You see, because there is one, or many, I believe, for each one of us. There is this gift, just as Mary had the gift of Jesus in her womb. You have a gift that is a blessing for the world. How do you carry the gift of Jesus into the world and have it be a blessing? You are blessed. Can we be more like Mary and carry Jesus into this world? In my study Bible, this Bible that's with me every Sunday, there's a little insert written. This one is written by a woman named Ginger Gaines Cirilli, and it's just entitled Blessed, and it's talking about this very part of this text, which I know you'll hear again next week. She writes, the language of blessing often gets connected to material wealth, but Mary's blessing was not that at all. It was a blessing of purpose, of new life, of relationship, of participation in what God was doing in the world. Her blessing brought hardship and confusion and grief, but it was still a blessing. The greatest gifts we receive, the capacity to love, to share, to create, all involve risks and are certain to bring pain into our lives in some way. But God desires or dreams our participation in the divine work of beaming beauty, love, and truth into the world. And that's a blessing indeed. And so my invitation to you is to think about that this week and as we move into next, about how you will carry this blessing of Jesus into the world. We had opportunity this week to remember that it was 40 years ago that John Lennon was shot and killed, and it's hard to believe it was that long ago. He wrote his song Imagine in 1971, and the words still speak volumes to us about hopes and dreams of a better world for everybody. He wrote in part, "You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us and the world will live as one. May that be true this Christmas. May that be for you the opportunity to receive the blessing and sow the joy and be a part of the great dreamer's dream. Amen."